Hello, welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez in Quito, and this is from the South. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced the details of the so-called Middle East plan as Palestinians vowed to reject it. The proposal was unveiled by Trump at a news conference alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It includes the U.S. recognizing illegal Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank. And in a move seen as an attempt to fend off opposition to the plan, Trump proposed the creation of an independent Palestinian state with its capital in East Jerusalem. Many Palestinian organizations have vowed to reject any plan that does not include the right to self-determination and the right of all refugees to return to the lands where they were driven off by Israeli settlers.
Today's agreement is a historic opportunity for the Palestinians to finally achieve an independent state of their very own. After 70 years of little progress, this could be the last opportunity they will ever have, and last for a lot of reasons. We'll never have a team like we have right now.
Meanwhile, Israel's Attorney General has formally indicted Netanyahu on 3 corruption charges. Earlier on Tuesday, Netanyahu announced he was withdrawing his request for immunity from prosecution in the 3 corruption cases in which he's charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Netanyahu's political opponents have accused him of attempting to use the Middle East peace plan to distract attention from his corruption cases and to also boost his re-election campaign. Thousands of people rallied outside the El Alto airport in Bolivia to greet presidential candidate Luis Arce on his arrival from Argentina. Social movements gathered since early in the day to welcome the candidate for the Movement Towards Socialism Party and his running mate, David Choquehuanca. This is Arce's first time back in Bolivia since he was officially nominated to represent the MAS in the upcoming general elections. But shortly after his arrival, the de facto government served Arce with a legal notice in relation to an investigation into the alleged breach of his duties. According to the notice, Arce is expected in court on Wednesday to be questioned by prosecutors. This investigation was announced 1 day after his nomination as candidate by the MAS party and comes as part of the ongoing persecution of party members and supporters. Barely a month into 2020, the systematic killing of social leaders and former FARC combatants in Colombia continues. And social organizations denounce that the government of President Iván Duque does next to nothing to put an end to this situation.
The latest victim of the systematic persecution of social leaders and former FARC combatants is John Freddy Vargas Rojas, who was killed in Pitalito in the department of Huila. He was the 4th former FARC combatant murdered this year, bringing the total number of guerrillas slain since the 2016 peace deal to 184.
There have been ongoing violations by the government on the guarantees that were agreed upon in 2016. Armed groups continue working with impunity, and the state never created a commission to find and prosecute paramilitary groups for their crimes. This has only aggravated the current crisis.
There is also an alarming number of political prisoners who were members of the FARC, whose legal situation remains uncertain 3 years after the peace deal was signed. Their limbo also violates both the peace deal and an amnesty law.
There have been clear delays by the state and the special jurisdiction for peace to resolve the situation of 200 political prisoners. They have been waiting for years to have their alleged crimes investigated by the GEP and hopefully be freed.
Colombia's current right-wing ruling party always opposed the dialogue process and the resulting peace deal. Party members have strongly advocated for the withdrawal of the peace agreement, and now they are trying to halt the implementation of the accords and halt peace-building process in Colombia.
We must not forget that we are in the presence of a political entity that has no interest in the implementation of the agreements under the original terms, because doing so would weaken their political agenda, which represents the most extreme sectors of the Colombian right. These sectors have used conflict and war as ways to grab power, to enrich themselves, and to preserve a system of domination.
21 social leaders and 4 former FARC combatants have been killed during the first month of 2020. But the government of Iván Duque continues to turn a blind eye to the situation.
On Monday night, people in Cuba paid tribute to the national hero José Martí on the eve of the 167th anniversary of his birth. Led by the first secretary of the Communist Party, Raúl Castro, and President Miguel Díaz-Canel, close to 30,000 marched across Havana holding torches. They paid tribute to a similar march held in 1953 by university students against dictator Fulgencio Batista.
At the historic stairs of the University of Havana, everything was ready for the march. Havana once again became witness to an event that pays tribute to one of the island's most important heroes. Close to 30,000 people marched to the old San Lázaro quarry, as they also paid tribute to a similar march in 1953, held in defiance of the then dictator Fulgencio Batista.
Es la propia revolución. Martí is one of the pillars of the revolution. Fidel used many of his ideas to walk the path that he did, to have a successful revolution and to make Cuba what it is today. Martí's most beautiful gift is his love for all people.
This year's march also took time to condemn recent acts of vandalism on statues of the national hero that were financed by counter-revolutionary groups based in Miami.
This march has a historic vision, and we stand in solidarity with Cuba. Marching today is very important to show that Cuba is not alone.
But it wasn't just Cubans who paid tribute to José Martí. Among the masses, there were also people from a number of international social and student movements.
This march has a historic vision, and we stand in solidarity with Cuba. Marching today is very important to show that Cuba is not alone.
This is how Cubans and people from abroad pay tribute to José Martí, by carrying the torch of dignity and defending just causes around the world.
We have more stories coming up, so stay with us. The death toll for China's coronavirus has risen to 106. The revised figures were released by the National Health Commission on Tuesday. The NHC said it has confirmed 4,535 cases of the pneumonia-like illness, of which more than 900 are severe. Meanwhile, a total of 60 patients have been reportedly cured and discharged.
那么作为定点医院来收治这些
Wuhan has started to urgently build 2 hospitals, namely Huo-Shenzan Hospital and Liexishan Hospital, which are scheduled to provide 2,300 beds. The construction of Huo-Shenzan Hospital is to be completed by February the 2nd, and then will be transferred to military management as we have military medical teams. The construction of the Liexishan Hospital will be finished on February 5th. In addition, as the 4th batch of hospital deployment, Wuhan City will take over 14 hospitals for urgent use, including the new hospital of the Dongji Medical College under the Huazhong University of Science and Technology and the Remning Hospital of Wuhan University. A total of over 10,000 beds will be enough for the current suspected and confirmed cases, including those who are running fever and still under medical observations.
And the city of Wuhan remains deserted after the government placed a lockdown on the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in an effort to contain its spread. 15 cities have been placed under lockdown, 30 provinces have launched a level 1 emergency response, while Hong Kong declared its highest emergency response. Meanwhile, there are 52 confirmed cases of the virus outside China. Germany, Canada and Sri Lanka announced their first infections on Monday, bringing the total number of countries with confirmed cases to 15. The head of the World Health Organization has expressed confidence in China's epidemic prevention and control measures. Tedros Adhanom made the comment during his visit to the country, where he met with Foreign Minister Wang Yi this Tuesday. He said the WHO does not recommend the evacuation of foreign nationals and urged the international community to remain calm. A suspected case of coronavirus has been detected in Brazil. The Ministry of Health has confirmed that the patient has been admitted to a hospital in Minas Gerais and is under observation. The patient is a 22-year-old woman who visited the Chinese city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the virus. Meanwhile, in Colombia, the mayor of Bogotá has confirmed they are investigating a possible case of coronavirus in the country. The patient is a 24-year-old man who also arrived from Wuhan. At least 46 people have died in southeast Brazil and more than 25,000 have been displaced due to floods caused by heavy rains. The city of Belo Horizonte has been the hardest hit, with 37 people dead and a further 25 missing. According to Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology, on Friday, the city registered the highest recorded precipitation in the area in 110 years. Unilateral sanctions imposed on Venezuela continue to harm all citizens. Despite this, members of the opposition continue to demand more sanctions, now from the European Union. We have more in this report.
The maritime trade and access to medicine could be greatly affected by a possible increase in sanctions coming from the European Union against Venezuela. This will come to pass if opposition figure Juan Guaidó gets his wish, as he asked international governments for their help during a speech at the Davos Economic Forum.
We must be further used to the tools that the free world has. Sanctions have been controversial, but they are the only tools we have to face off against these regimes, and they must be used with a steady hand.
Guaidó's European trip put on full display the diplomatic and political contradictions that his backers use to justify their support, as the lawmaker continues to dispute his self-proclaimed role as president of the National Assembly of Venezuela.
In the global stage, Europe does not hold the same weight as in the last century. Now the real economic power is in emerging countries, and there is a rupture in the guidelines given by Washington. Some European officials recognize Guaidó as the president of the National Assembly, and others as interim president. His visit was unsuccessful. There were no diplomatic results.
The decision by Spain's government to not recognize him in his self-proclaimed role and of President Sanchez to not meet with him further hurt his tour.
Promoting economic sanctions so that people suffer, to try and overthrow a democratic government, and to avoid dialogue and peace is a mistake. In my opinion, the principles of peaceful coexistence and of resolving issues by talking need to have a stronger role, especially after what we have seen happen in the Middle East.
Since 2018, the European Union has imposed sanctions on Venezuelan officials, but various investigations confirm that the measures always end up affecting the people of Venezuela, contrary to what the United States and the opposition claim.
The right wing lies through its teeth to their supporters, telling them sanctions only hurt the government. The truth is sanctions directly hurt oil production, food and medicine imports, and other industries. They are a direct attack on our people.
Guaido embodies the submission of someone who says he stands for the Venezuelan state. This leaves a bad taste in the mouth of those governments that chose to welcome him, because he has no concept of sovereignty and legitimacy. He wants us to be a colony.
In the meantime, Venezuela continues to build up its relationship with allied countries like China and Russia in order to import medicine and food. The government is also expanding its work with the United Nations to fight the outcome of sanctions.
And Guaido is seeking to secure the support of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We spoke to Louis Lang from ALBA Movements in Canada. He said international solidarity on a people-to-people level, but also on a state level, is important in protecting the sovereignty of the Venezuelan people.
Well, yes, I think that it's very important that CARICOM took that position, because what the U.S. is trying to do is they're trying to divide the countries in order to be able to push for their own policies. So the actual offensive against the Latin American countries, like for instance, this is what they did in the OAS as well, when they could not win a resolution against Venezuela in the OAS. The U.S. got Canada to form the Lima Group, and they're trying to do the same thing in CARICOM, where they don't. CARICOM has so far stood against the actions of the U.S., and they've stood in solidarity with Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua. And this is one of the reasons why Pompeo went to Latin America, in order to try to divide these countries and try to impose, give the impression that he has support. And of course, it's not true. He doesn't have the majority of support. And as you point out, only a small number of leaders of the CARICOM countries actually went to meet him. So this is, I think, CARICOM is playing a very positive role. And we hope that they continue to stand up for, take a principled position.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. More news at this hour. A full ceremonial military display has taken place at the opening of the historic Red House in Trinidad and Tobago on Friday. The regiment, Coast Guard, Police and Air Force Reserves participated. All 42 members of parliament and 31 senators were present for the event. The original building was ironically destroyed by fire in the 1903 water riots and rebuilt in 1907. It was also the scene of a showdown between law enforcement and members of the Jamaat al-Muslimin who staged a coup to overthrow the government in 1990. The Red House is one of 5 historic buildings in Port of Spain and was restored after more than a decade, costing $65 million.
We in Trinidad and Tobago, we are traveling people, and we go to other people's countries and we marvel at their symbolism and their symbols. In Australia, we marvel at the Sydney Opera House. In Washington, we spend vacations staring at the Capitol and the obelisk. And in London, we look at the Palace of Westminster and we don't ask how much it costs to maintain. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen it said that we should have spent the money that we did on renovation here on social services and feeding the poor. We did both. We spent the $5 billion a year on social support services, and we spent the money in renovating and restoring our parliament.
And recognizing her role as head of state and not head of government, the president of Trinidad and Tobago took the opportunity to deliver some of the public's concerns to lawmakers as she delivered her address.
And so I deliver their message. A message which they feel that neither government nor opposition is hearing, or if hearing, ignoring. And the message is as simple as it is poignant. They are hurting. While Parliament and other leaders of the country are dabbling in semantics about whether we are a failed state or in a crime crisis, our citizens are being murdered at an alarming rate. They lack opportunities for employment or are losing their jobs. Food prices are spiraling beyond the reach of many, and more of our children are falling into the at-risk category. Citizens are entitled to look to you for and demand of you solutions to alleviate their pain. They want you to work together for their good.
In other news, classes have been suspended at the Villa Road Primary School in Jamaica after an explosion injured 5 people on Monday. Reports say the blast occurred due to a leak during delivery of LPG gas, which led to a fire. The victims are said to be 3 cafeteria workers and 2 employees from the gas company Petcom. They suffered first and third-degree burns. Students were taken to a nearby residential property for safety, and classes are expected to resume this week. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has thanked the countries who've assisted in his nation's development, among them Cuba, Venezuela, Japan, the Dominican Republic, Mexico and South Korea. However, he gave a special thank you to China.
The hundreds of millions of dollars provided by China in grants, technical assistance and concession loans have supported infrastructure, education, energy, national security, housing, sports, and community development projects. Is this the action of a country that is seeking to colonize us? Clearly not. The significance of the support provided by the government and people of China cannot be overstated.
Violence against women is an ongoing issue in Mexico, where feminist groups continue to hold protests to demand conclusive investigations in cases of femicides and domestic abuse, and to find women who have disappeared.
For a year, Natalie Carmona's family has done everything in their hands to locate her. The last time they knew anything about her was before she traveled to the state of Puebla along with her partner. While his body was allegedly located, his family refuses to cooperate with investigations.
Despite us being neighbors, his family haven't told me they found the body. And I have fought with the prosecutor, so they show me the body they brought back from Puebla, because I don't believe that this is Natalie's partner.
A collective that helps families locate the bodies of their loved ones has joined in a search for Natalie. One of the strategies is to paint a mural with Natalie's face and the available information of her disappearance.
This is to develop awareness within the population. The idea is to turn walls into a kind of flyer that allows us to track disappearances.
The disappearance of women, along with homicides, constitutes one of the main concerns for social groups who hope to inform the population in the situation that women face.
There are alarming figures, not only with domestic violence, but general violence and beyond. It seems to me that we are entering another moment of awareness. Now, we must visibilize what women are demanding.
According to official figures, 3,093 women were reported missing in all of Mexico between December 1st of 2018 and December 31st of 2019. While 1,816 were located, the rest remain missing.
Yo siento que estamos en un momento transitorio importante en el que justo esta deconstrucción de violencia está pasando, ¿no?
The government, along with the United Nations, has pursued a series of legal modifications and started protocols to follow up on the thousands of pending cases.
Women keep paying the highest price as a result of gender inequality, discrimination, and negative stereotypes. They are also who have more chances of being killed by their partners and families.
But femicides continue unabated, with 3 cases against feminist activists recorded in 2020 already.
Demonstrators have gathered in Barcelona in solidarity with the 9 Catalan pro-independence politicians who were sentenced last year. The group also rejects the central government's move on Monday to strip leader Quim Torra of his role as a lawmaker. With pro-independence flags, protesters mobilized outside Catalonia's parliament, chanting in support of the men, condemning their political persecution. French firefighters have protested in the capital, Paris, to demand a pay increase and improvements to their working conditions. However, police used tear gas and batons to disperse thousands of their fellow servicemen. The firefighters continue to march as they demanded an increase in their bonus, which they say has not been reviewed since 1990. France has been experiencing widespread labor unrest for over a year, with various sectors protesting for better living conditions and in rejection to President Emmanuel Macron's economic policies. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has arrived in Senegal for an official state visit. President Erdogan was welcomed by his Senegalese counterpart Macky Sall on the final stop of his African tour. Turkish and African relations have continued to gain momentum since 2008, when the African Union officially declared Turkey as a strategic partner of the continent. And with that, we end our news brief, but you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to also join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.